Thank you for zooming in today with us. On behalf of the Sandbox Centre team, welcome to our Experts in Residence session, Communications and Creativity. For those who haven't been acquainted with me or the Sandbox, I'm Mackenzie. I'm one of the 6 members of the Sandbox team. We're located downtown Barrie and online to connect people and their ideas to business resources on their journey to success. If you haven't yet attended one of our Experts in Residence sessions, we're happy to have you with us today. Across a wide variety of different expertise, we're offering free expert advice to all businesses across the region in order to help support with the economic impact of COVID-19. If you're interested in learning more about what our Experts in Residence program has to offer, head over to our website, sandboxcentre.com, after the session and check it out just under the Programs tab. Today, we're thrilled to have experts Jan Bailey and Shona Welsh of Ovation. Ovation workshops are highly interactive online and in person, and Shona and Jan have helped countless individuals transform their ability to connect to their audience and deliver authentic and meaningful messages with impact. They have combined over 50 years of experience in speaking, teaching, writing, acting, broadcasting, training, and comedy. What can't they do? I don't know. We know some attendees today have pre-submitted their questions, but for those of you who have some questions throughout the session, don't be shy. Please use the Q&A feature that's just at the bottom of your screen there. We'll be monitoring this throughout, and we'll try to get to answering as many of your questions as possible towards the end of the session. So just before we get started, a quick thank you to all of our community partners for supporting with the sharing of our events. And of course, a big thank you to Ovation for being here today with us. So without further ado, please welcome Ovation as they help you put your best self forward with a little laughter and some practical tips for effective online communication. Over to you, Jan and Shona.
Thanks, Mackenzie.
Thanks very much, Mackenzie.
Yeah. Hi, I'm Shona, and I'm going to kick it off today. You'll meet Jan in a couple of minutes. Before we get started, there are 2 key things we want you to know about today. First of all, there will not be a PowerPoint in sight. It's like we've moved death by PowerPoint in real life onto the online environment. We're not doing it. So having said that, don't worry about writing anything down. We have prepared a checklist for you that Sandbox is going to send out after the session, and it's going to include everything we talk about today and more. So you can just sit back, relax, and hopefully learn something. The second thing we want to share with you before we get into our top 3 tips for excellent video conferencing is there's a little bit of research out there that's new that kind of puts in context this whole concept of Zoom fatigue. Now, it doesn't matter if your platform is Zoom or Microsoft Teams or whatever you're using, we're gonna call that Zoom fatigue. And yeah, it is a real thing. So what's contributing to that? And we'll talk about that in a minute. And just thinking about the tips we're gonna give you today will really help alleviate that. So the first reason we are feeling exhausted is because being on camera requires our brain to work harder to catch visual cues. So the body language, the facial expressions, you know, those kinds of things. It's more intuitive when you're sitting with people in a real environment. So your brain actually has to focus and work harder to read those cues that you just kind of do naturally in a real environment. So that's one reason you're feeling exhausted. Second reason you're feeling exhausted, when we're physically on camera, we're very aware of being watched and we are on all the time. It is nerve-wracking, it is stressful, and we feel like it's always got to be a performance. Cameras freak people out, so that's even more stressful. Third reason it's stressful is it doesn't matter if you're an introvert or an extrovert, and we'll touch on this a little bit more. Both introverts and extroverts are equally exhausted by the last few months of being online. Let's start with extroverts. Many of you know that extroverts get their energy from interacting with people. Jan and I do so much training. I got to tell you, we are missing that interaction and the energy we get from the group. So it's quite a challenge for extroverts to have gone this long, and it's loosening up a little bit, but that's exhausting for them. For introverts, it might surprise you. At first, introverts, I can speak about this because I have a lot of introvert in me. At first, it was great to be online. It's like, wow, you know, I can reflect a little bit. I don't have to get dressed up. I don't necessarily have to say too much. But after a while, that gets exhausting for introverts as well. Because again, when you're talking, you're on camera and you can't just sit in the meeting and kind of quietly observe and process the thoughts. You're asked to be on and contribute. So that sense of onness is exhausting. Now, for introverts as well. So again, it's equally exhausting for both styles. And then finally, the last big stressor the research is showing is that our whole lives have merged together. So our family, our friends, our work, it's all on this little screen. It would be like in olden times, sitting in a restaurant and running your whole life from a restaurant. So you get your child ready for school in the restaurant. You have meetings with your colleagues in the restaurant. Your mom meets you for lunch, more meetings. Your date shows up at 6 o'clock in the restaurant. So we're not able to compartmentalize and separate the roles in our life. That's been very, very exhausting for everybody. So just a little bit of background on what this thing called Zoom fatigue is. And it is a real thing and why it's happening. So without further ado, let's jump into our tips. And Jan, my partner Jan Bailey, is going to start us off with tip number 1.
Good morning, everyone. It's really hard to stand there and just listen. And before I get started, something occurred to me as I was sitting listening to Shona, or standing actually listening to Shona. It really, I know you can't necessarily see your audience, but it really is important to be an active listener, whether you're in a live performance, listening to a talk, or in the boardroom, or whether you're on Zoom. It really is important to be active, try and give people something to work off of. So you have a role as an audience member as well. But let's talk about you as a performer this morning. And I know none of you like that word, but sometimes it is what we feel we're doing. So let's call you maybe an active participant in your Zoom meetings. So we're going to talk, as our first tip, of course, is the big one that everybody likes to talk about and needs to talk about, is lighting and camera. Now, it really is important. And I know you're not necessarily television people or film people, and that's fine. There are a few little things that you can do to make you look better. And we all know when you look better, you feel better and you feel like you're presenting better. So if you even look at the difference between Shona and I, Shona's in a nice intimate office. She's got maybe a little more control of her light. I'm in quite a large space, and my sound is probably a fair bit different. You can see, or I can see anyway, I look as though I'm standing in the heavens with the light streaming down upon me. So, and I don't really have a lot of control over that. So we are going to tell you, this little device that you all have is your friend. So to find the best light in your house or your home office or wherever you're holding your meetings, walk around with your camera, flip the camera lens and walk around and actually actively walk around. You'll look like you're looking for a cell signal as you walk around, but look and see what the best lighting is, because it really does make a difference. Now I'm going to ask my lovely assistant here to demonstrate how bad lighting can be. And you all know what we're talking about here, because you've all seen it. You've seen some very bad lighting in some of your Zoom calls. And so we like to help you a little bit. So in a perfect world, you would have lovely light in front of your face. It would be not necessarily natural light, because if a cloud goes in front of the sun or in front of the window, then the light changes and all of a sudden you get dark and shadowy. So you really want unnatural light. However, Shona, if you would like to demonstrate what happens when the light is coming a little bit too much from perhaps below. You've got a desk lamp and it's maybe bouncing off and it's lighting you from underneath. And here's what, clearly we're going to exaggerate this a little bit because it's fun, but here's what happens to your lighting. Okay, now Shona still looks good, but she is, oh, there are my automatic lights. Oh, I actually look, I look maybe better in the dark. Oh, see? So what Shona just did there, she had a light in front of her, a desk light in front of her that was shining directly at her face, which is perfect. She shut that off because most people don't do that. And now she's got a light underneath her. And not so good. Okay, so look at the shadows. She's got a lovely view of her, the end of her nose, which is really not great. The chin is too shiny. Okay, but even just in the dark, the shadows are not necessarily flattering. Okay, and we all like to look our best on camera. That's important. Okay, now lighting from the side. She's got a lovely bright window in her office that sometimes can make it really challenging to control the light. So now look what happened. So she's the front light is gone. Ooh, the front light is gone from her, and she's a little washed out on one side and we can't see the other side. Now, if any of you know anything about artistic filmmaking, what does it say when we can only see, we've got light and dark on one side. It speaks to Shona's mental health, but
Yes,
really
absolutely.
she's very balanced. Yeah. Okay. So you want to block off that natural light or close those blinds again. And you want a nice bright light in the front of you. Now, I will admit that I am a convert of the ring light. Okay, you can get these babies online for not very much. They deliver them very quickly, and it really does make a difference because you can manipulate it and control it. One of the challenges, I don't know about you, Shona, but in my office at home, I've got an old-fashioned, it's like a banker's desk lamp, and I tip it like this, and it blasts me in the face when I'm looking at the camera. Now I look great, I look all even and well lit, but it does get a little bit warm at the end of the day. So now, camera angles. Let's talk a little bit about those. So you've got your light figured out. It should be directly in front of you, in the face. Now, camera angles. One of the eye line is very important. Eye contact is extremely important. You must have eye contact. Now, I am looking at the camera. I am not looking at Shona. So Shona, could you demonstrate for us, maybe wish us a lovely day or whatever you want to say, and show us what it looks like to look at us and look at the camera. So let's take a look.
So hi, everybody. Welcome. We're so excited to have you here today.
Nice. Okay. I feel like I'm included. I'm included in the conversation. She's actually looking at me and welcoming me. Okay.
Hi, everyone. I am so thrilled to be here today, and we are so happy to share some information with you.
Okay, so she's looking at us on the camera, which makes sense to her, but how did you all feel? All of a sudden, we're not included in her conversation. All of a sudden, we're thinking, where is she looking? Now, granted, you might have to look down at your notes every now and again, so you're going to break eye contact, but come back to the camera. It is practice. It takes a little while to figure out, but you can do it. So your camera lens should be right about eye level or slightly up. And the reason up is nice is because it opens your face a little bit, right? It makes you look up and more awake. You would laugh if you saw me because I've got a footstool on a desk and then a couch cushion on the footstool and then my laptop. Well, you can do all of that in your house, stack up books, whatever you need to do, put a box. Okay, so get that eye line up. When you're down and you're looking down here, yeah, not so attractive, right? You've got double chins and all kinds of things. People are looking up your nose. Eye level, okay? Eye level. That's very, very important. And please, 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 please make eye contact with the camera lens. Include your audience in what you're doing. Okay, so control the light. It should be shining directly at you. Test it. Eye line should be straight ahead. Make sure you're making eye contact with the camera lens. Connect with your audience. Okay?
Yeah, you can have it. Just want to add to that. You can have a low tech solution. I've got the light behind my computer because my computer faces a wall, and it's stacked on books I don't read. You know, War and Peace, stuff like that. Yeah, and the other thing is just thinking about being about 2 to 3 feet away from your camera, so it feels natural, but at the same time, you're filling a fair amount of the screen.
The other thing that's interesting, thanks for that, Shona, is that it's nice when you're in a meeting, especially if you're the presenter, that your head is kind of the same size as everyone else's. That's kind of a gauge. So Shona is nice and close to her camera, and it's lots of head filling up the space. If I go back here, all of a sudden it looks a bit strange, right? Because we don't really match, even though I'm the one that's speaking. So that's something to consider as well. And people often think that they can cheat their eye line if they're further away and look at the screen. No, we can still tell. We can still tell that you're not looking at the camera, so please do look. I do prefer to be back here because when I gesture, you can actually see them, right? And I'm very much a natural gesturer. Is that a word? And so it is now, yeah. And when I'm up here, when I gesture, all of a sudden I have these kind of disembodied hands that pop into the screen. So you might want to be a little bit conscious of that and make sure that if you are gesturing, your hands are so we can see them and they're attached, or not at all, but whichever is your personal preference.
Yeah. So one more thing just to add about looking at the camera, it is hard to train yourself to do this because even like face-to-face speaker training that we do, we train people to look at the audience and look at various people in the audience. You just can't do it. So as Jan said, you can look a little bit at people, but you want to come back to home base. And I am constantly having to remind myself, you're talking to the camera, not to the person on the screen. So it is a bit of practice. It's a bit of an acquired skill. And it does take away from your ability to read, you know, those facial expressions on people. So do try to, you know, go back and forth, but home base is the camera. Yeah.
You do get better. You do get better at kind of looking at both. You have an awareness of the people on the laptop. But I always used to tell people when I worked in television, it's like if you can look right into the lens, if you can kind of see what's going on in there, it almost gives you this look of focus. Or imagine that you've got a friend that's sitting right on the other side of that camera. Whatever you need to do, however you need to imagine it, that's where you need to look.
Okay, so that concludes tip number one, lighting and camera angles. Really simple things to do, low tech options. So hopefully that was helpful. We're going to go right into tip number two, which is please do something different. I talked at the beginning about death by PowerPoint has now moved online from real life. And we're not saying don't use PowerPoint. Of course, we're sharing screens and we got to get information across and all the rest of it. But one of the conscious choices we made today, and that I often make and Jan makes with our clients, is we're not going to have a Zoom meeting. We're just going to talk on the phone just to give people a rest from that. But we don't have any choice. We're working with our teams. We are all on camera all the time. So shake it up a little bit. It doesn't have to always be PowerPoint online. So you could use a low tech option. For example, one of the things we talk about a lot is research done by Microsoft Corporation that shows the attention span of a goldfish is 9 seconds. Hold on, I have a point. Yeah, it's 9 seconds. Why does Microsoft care what the attention span of a goldfish is? Well, they care because freakishly, the attention span of a human being in 2020 is 8 seconds. So instead of putting that on a PowerPoint, I've created a low-tech solution. I've just drawn a goldfish on a piece of bristle board and a reminder that when you want to engage people online, you have about 8 seconds to do something interesting, and then you got to kind of switch up what you're doing. So you're drawing a little picture of a goldfish. It can be low tech. You can back up a little bit and do something over here. You can tell a story. Another thing that works really well is, especially if you're a leader, is this concept of speaking last. So throw it out to the floor for discussion. The research shows that 70% of employees will not disagree with their leader if they offer an idea first. So as a leader, you know, throw it out there. Hey, we got to solve this problem. Do not give your ideas. It gets people engaged and talking. And a lot of platforms have breakout room functions. You can get people into smaller groups. So, you know, try and break it up with as many creative things as you can that don't include PowerPoints.
It's very true. I like you all. You're very nice people. I'm so glad you're here this morning. We all get very lazy, right? And this PowerPoint becomes the star of the show, and you just kind of sit back and read the PowerPoint or look at it or click through that. And Shona and I, this again, whether you're live or whether you're on camera, you're the star of the show. So remember, you're the expert. You're the person with the information. You're the person with the passion for your project. You're the person with the passion for your statement, whatever it is that you're saying, not the PowerPoint. So step in, try something new, try something different, and don't rely so much on the technology. Give yourself a break. Give yourself a break and give the other people in the room a break. So our next, on that note of energy, we're going to go to tip number 3. So tip number 2, try something different. Tip number 3, we're going to talk a little bit about your energy on camera. Now, I know, and Shona said it right off the top, it is a very different animal. And it's really hard to feel like you're connected to someone. You kind of feel like you're talking to yourself all the time, which is a bit odd. But it really is important to get your energy up, that elusive energy. And we love speaking. We love speaking on camera and in front of people. And it's even hard for us to maintain energy. Add 4 or 5 or 6 or 7 or 8 meetings on Zoom, and it gets really hard. But if you practice some of these tricks that we're going to show you in the next couple of minutes, it will help you perk up your energy a little bit before you present, which is really important, and also during when you're presenting. So I this time get to be the model, and we'll turn it over to Shona so that she can tell you a little bit about how to maintain and perk up your energy.
Great. So the first thing I'm going to ask Jan to do is turn around. So her back is to the camera. There's a reason for this. There's method to our madness. Now, I'm going to ask Jan to say a couple of sentences, and I'm going to ask her to do it one time while she's smiling and another time when she's not smiling. I'm not going to tell you, and she's thumbs up, I'm not going to tell you which one she's doing first. Let's see if we can discern a difference. So Jan, a couple of sentences. Don't tell us if you're smiling or not.
I am so happy to be here this morning at Sandbox. It is such a great space, and we're very lucky to be here and have it in Barrie.
Okay, so second round, same comment, opposite thing you're doing.
We are so excited to be here at the Sandbox. It is a great space, and we're very lucky to have it in Barrie.
Okay, Jan, you want to turn around? I'm going to take a wild guess. This is sort of like being at the ophthalmologist, right? Better or worse? Better or worse? I'm going to say the first one you were smiling and the second one you were not. Is that correct?
Absolutely correct.
Yeah. Now, what you'll notice is that Jan did not alter her vocal variety, like she still had energy in her voice, etc. But there was a slight difference in her energy in terms of smiling versus not smiling. Now, this sounds like a ridiculously simple thing, and it is a ridiculously simple thing, but it's amazing how it adds energy not only to you, so you can keep that energy up, but people will subconsciously respond to that added energy in your voice just because you're smiling. So it's amazing and a very simple thing for you to do. Okay, Jan's going to turn around again. And
I don't remember what I'm going to do, but okay.
She doesn't remember what she's going to do. She needs a chair for this.
Oh, yes. Thank you.
Yeah, now she knows what we're going to do. Okay. So I think actually you need to be off screen, Jen, for us to demonstrate this as well. So what's going to happen is Jen's going to say, again, a couple of sentences, and one of the times she's going to be standing up while she says it, and the second time she's going to be sitting down, or vice versa. We don't know. We're going to guess the better or worse difference. So Jen, take it away.
How great is it that we have access to the Sandbox and all of the great business ideas that they give us. It really is fortunate.
Okay, second version.
How great is it that we have access to the Sandbox here in Barrie and all of the business ideas that they give us. It really is wonderful.
Okay, come on back on camera. I'm going to take a guess. You were standing the second time and sitting the first time. Is that right?
Absolutely correct.
Again, it's subtle differences in your voice and your energy, just like the ophthalmologist, you know, better or worse. But again, it makes difference to your energy and to the energy your audience is hearing. So obviously you can't always stand up, but even when you're on a phone call with clients or your team members, or you're on a meeting where you've disconnected the video, standing up adds so much energy to your voice, and people will, again, subconsciously pick up on that. So it will keep the energy up through a long meeting.
Yeah, I just wanted to add to that, Shona. I find, and maybe this is just me, but I find I'm more confident when I'm standing, because if I stand up and I check my posture and I open the space in my lungs and I stand up and I sort of have that, we call it the Superman kind of pose, right? I do find that I'm more confident about what I have to say, and the tone just improves, as opposed to when I'm sitting. It's way easier to kind of slouch and sink as you're sitting, and just it gets a bit flat. So
yeah, I mean, confidence and energy in your voice comes from proper breathing. And when we're standing up, we can fill up our lungs to the diaphragm and have better projection. So that's also what's at play here. So good point. Okay, last thing we're going to do in terms of adding energy to your voice is Jan's going to demonstrate how volume equals energy. So she'll again say a couple of sentences just in a regular voice, and then she's going to ramp it up a little bit in terms of volume. Watch what happens in her body when she does that.
I automatically feel like I have to move closer to the camera, because it's really important that you get these lessons today, because we're all online so much, and it's really fortunate that Sandbox has invited us today, because we feel really quite lucky to be able to share these tips with you.
Okay. Second version.
It really is great that Sandbox has invited us here today, and we feel quite fortunate to share these tips with you and to be able to tell you some of the things that we've learned over the years of our coaching, and we really hope that you come up with a few ideas that work for you.
So again, kind of a better or worse thing, you can hear the energy go up as Jan raises her volume. Now, don't worry for a second that you sound like you're yelling. We work with a lot of people that go, no, I sound like I'm yelling. And we're like, no, you really don't. You just sound like you're confident. You sound like you're passionate about what you're talking about. So even just upping your volume a bit actually gets your body involved and it makes you feel more energetic. Jan's going to talk a little bit about earbuds.
So most of you, or many of you, are wearing earbuds or the headphones, the noise canceling and the fabulous headphones that you have. I find that when I wear two earbuds or when I wear the headphones, that I sound in my head like I am really loud. And so I automatically go shoom, like this with my volume. And now that energy that Shona was just talking about is lost. So the way I counteract that is I want to be able to hear what's going on in the meeting, but I also want to be able to perk up my own voice. So I just wear one. I just wear one so that I hear everybody clearly and what everyone is saying, and I leave the other one out so I have a better sound gauge of myself, and I know if I'm speaking up enough and taking my energy up. So that's my little earbud trick.
Yeah. No, it's a really good point. I mean, a lot of people have recommended that when you're on online meetings, you should wear your earphones or your earbuds all the time. And I guess what we're saying is it kind of depends. I mean, most of us do not have a high quality headset, and I'm talking in the hundreds, maybe thousands of dollars, right? I've got a friend that owns the most amazing headset. It's like those noise canceling, but it was a few $1,000s. I don't know about you, but I'm not prepared to spend the money on a headset. So I think these are just some simple kind of lower tech solutions because we're not in professional studios. So just to make it as effective as possible. So just to review, we've done 3 tips today. Again, there's way more on the checklist you're going to get. Number 1 was lighting and camera, all those things. Number 2 was do something different, could be low tech. And number 3 was thinking about 3 things to ramp up your energy: smiling, standing versus sitting, and upping your volume. Yeah.
Excellent. Well, we hope that you have picked up a couple of tips that will work for you. Now we get it. You may be now sitting there thinking, I have to change everything that I'm doing, or you might be a bit overwhelmed. Please don't get overwhelmed. Just pick 1 or 2 things that feel like they would work for you and implement them. And again, you can check the checklist. You can check the checklist, and maybe next week you might try something different and find out what works for you and what you feel makes you more confident on camera and what makes you feel more confident in a meeting. And you might be surprised at the comments or the feedback that you'll get from the people that you work with, who might say, hey, I noticed you seemed really confident today in today's board meeting, or whatever, during your presentation. So give it a go. Just try something different. Try to shake up your own performance a little bit and grow, right? We're now all comfortable with Zoom, so just grow a little bit more. Now, we have lots of stuff coming up with Sandbox. We're really excited. We are genuinely excited to be here, and we're very happy to be a part of what's going on at Sandbox. So we have a couple of other webinars coming up in the future. So I don't know if I can say this or not, Mackenzie, but maybe if they have some suggestions of what they might like help with, they could send a little note to Sandbox and say, hey, could Jan and Shona talk about X, Y, or Z? That would be great fun. We would enjoy that. And we do have a much longer upcoming program starting in September, which we are very excited about. It's called Empower Her Wisdom. And it is a longer program for those of you who feel like you've got something to say, you've got a message you want to get out there. Maybe you want to do an official talk. Maybe you want to do a life-changing presentation, or maybe you just want to speak your truth. And so we have a whole program that we've set out for the fall that will help you do that. Build your speech, find your message, and practice your on camera, hopefully live. Hopefully we're going toward live performance. So do check that out at Sandbox, or of course our website as well.
I think we got a ton of questions now, Mackenzie.
Yes, we do.
Excellent.
We can't miss them. So thank you both so much. Those tips were unbelievable. It's so helpful, and I can't wait to get the checklist out to all of our participants today. I know they're going to benefit from it tons, but let's get into the questions. We have tons here. So first we have, would you recommend using a digital background or not?
Not. Yeah, it's a simple answer. Most of us don't have professional studios with a green screen and all that kind of stuff. And so even though there's all these cool little digital halo, digital effects, what happens is you end up with a digital halo. So I was recently teaching a public speaking course online, and one of my students just loved that. And he would like have the Golden Gate Bridge behind him and all kind. But if you move a muscle, if you even move a millimeter, you get the digital halo and it looks like you're a ghost and you're fading in and out of the background. So unless they're cool, they're interesting, do it with your family and friends if you want to try it out. But for meetings, definitely don't recommend it unless, again, you're in a professional studio.
Yeah, and I don't have, frankly, I don't have the internet capability to do that. And I'm sure many people in, north of Toronto or in other less major centers, your computer can't handle it. So we vote no.
Perfect.
Thumbs down.
Next, does clothing matter on a video call?
Yes,
in a word, yes. Yes, it does. Yeah, absolutely. Now, we have some very strong opinions about that, and that's okay. We actually have strong opinions about everything, don't we?
Pretty much, yeah.
So, anyway, we really would like you to be conscious of your environment in general. So when you're setting up your, as we talked about, lighting and your camera angle, do take a look at what's happening behind you as well, and depth of field. So it's nice if you got some distance behind you. Now, with all of that going on, you have to kind of either fit with your environment or stand out from your environment. Now, when I decided this morning to wear blue, I had forgotten, I'm actually at Sandbox, I had forgotten about the, other shoulder. I had forgotten about the blue pillars because I was in my mind thinking the background is all quite gray and white. And if I wear a pale color, I'll just fade into the background. I'll be this black head of hair and that will be all I look like. So I was consciously thinking about the environment I was going into, except for the blue, but I'm slightly different than the blue. So it really is important. Shona, I'll let you take over and I'm going to get some props here while you're.
Yeah. We brought some, each of us, some different clothing to show you what it looks like on screen. But one thing I want to talk about while Jan's doing that is you'll notice behind me, I've got a white screen in front of a bookcase. And sometimes I have it there and sometimes I don't. It really just depends on who I'm presenting to. But here I just wanted, to have a neutral background. And, with a bookcase, it can be lots of colors and distractions. So it just all depends. I just try to put that screen there to keep it neutral. Okay, Jan is demonstrating a print. Now, again, we talked about lighting not being so great there, but you can see the print, I think, kind of brings it dull. It dulls down the, just the whole sort of sense of the light already. And then it's busy, right? I've got another example myself of stripes. So I borrowed one of my husband's shirts, and you can see if you move it all, the stripes kind of go, I can see it on my screen myself, the stripes are going wonky. Yep. So try to avoid stripes where you can.
Yeah. And the other thing to be considered, the other thing to consider, so same, another very busy but white and the dots start to get a little wonky with your eyes, is again, the reason that we said to you, we'd like you to try something different and maybe not PowerPoint is because we want you to be the star of the show. So if people are looking at your shirt and thinking, oh gosh, they're not listening to you, right? If they're looking or listening to your earrings going clunk, 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 then they're not listening to you. So be aware of that.
I brought big earrings because.
Yeah, and though big jewelry is not necessarily a bad thing, if it becomes a distraction for your audience, it's absolutely a bad thing. Now, I know we're all a bit casual in the home office, but what happens here when I wear my casual funky clothes for Casual Friday, even though it's Wednesday, is you're all trying to read my shirt, aren't you? I know you are. Right? And that's what's happening is people are distracted by whatever you're wearing. So yes, your clothes matter. Go with business, go with something that,
Yeah. So I love this shirt, not for video conferencing, not at all. Way too busy. you know, it's just often pastels, neutral colors. You know, Jan is wearing a blue, but it's a straight color. There's no pattern on it, and so it's just way less distracting.
That's
Be
helpful.
the star of your show.
You wouldn't think, I mean, we've been at home for so long now, you definitely don't think about those loud colors and patterns that could be distracting throughout those video calls. But Craig Bush is on the call and says that we worked hard to pick out those pillar colors.
I love them. And I do love it because look, Craig, I almost match. Look,
you match perfectly.
I love the color too.
Awesome. So the next question we have is, how do we create intimacy with the client and also between the client and our products?
Well, so we've been talking about looking at the camera and having that eye contact, but I think one thing we really haven't, well, I think maybe Jan said it a little bit, is thinking about with your voice, talking behind the camera to you as if that person is there. Yeah. And you're like in a coffee shop, just having a conversation. We tell people this in person on stage all the time. Look, imagine you're talking to your friend. Would you talk like that? Would you sound like a professor? Would you sound really formal? No, you wouldn't. Just like we are now, we're just being ourselves. And again, I think the camera freaks people out, but that intimacy and that connection does not change on camera versus when you're in person with your client. Just be yourself, make the jokes, have the connection, smile. You know, I know it sounds really simple and you get freaked out by the camera, but really it's the same concept. In terms of your products, Jan wanted to say something.
Sorry.
No, it's okay.
I think what I would add to that is years ago when I worked in television, one of the things that producers will tell people who are on camera is, don't be afraid to admit when you've made a mistake. Don't be afraid to laugh at your own joke. Don't be afraid to say, okay, that made no sense. I'm actually going to try that again. And just like you would in person, because as soon as I do that, you automatically think she's actually human, right? Because something happens when we're looking at the camera and looking at a screen that we feel disconnected and disembodied a bit. So as soon as you do something that's human, I think you all know what I mean, it automatically draws the audience in. So don't be afraid to do that. Say, you know what, I'd like to start again, or I can't believe I told everybody this morning I cut my bangs before I came here, right? So we had a little laugh, and it just makes you feel connected to your audience and connected to the camera. So be you.
Yeah, I think the same thing for your products too. I mean, one of the golden rules we share with people is if you would not do it in person, don't do it online, right? So how do you promote your products in person? Well, you probably talk about the benefits of the product and how it's going to affect people's lives and, you know, the experience that they will, all, you know, all that stuff. People aren't buying products, you know this. They're buying experiences, they're buying feelings. So you can give that to them online when you're talking about your products and your service, again, by just being real. You know, we buy from other people. And again, it's no different online. Just put yourself into it and present your products in the same way you always would. It doesn't sound salesy. It sounds like you're having a connection and a relationship, which is what it's all about anyway.
Absolutely. That's so important. The next question we have, Natalie says, this is great information regarding the discussion to look at the camera. What if you need to read off notes on another screen or device?
Oh, Natalie, have we got a hint for you? You know how we had those three, and we know them, we talk about them. Guess what I got sticking right next to my camera is the points I wanted to cover, stuck right next to the camera. So I'm looking at them. You have no idea. Jan's got them too. And she's got a clip. I got stickies. However it works for you. We stick our notes in front of us. You can't see them, but we can just glance over and go, oh, yeah, there's where I am. That's how you handle notes.
And the other thing, sorry.
No, go ahead.
I cut you off as always. Shona gets used to me cutting her off. It's terrible. The other thing I would say to you too is it's so great to have cheat sheets, but remember your cheat sheets are just cheat sheets. You know this stuff. So you just want a few sentences or key words or whatever helps you remember. You don't want to be reading, right? Because even though you're looking above the camera, if I'm reading something from the camera and I'm reading my notes at the top, and that you can tell. So make sure that it's actually a cheat sheet, right?
Perfect.
Key points.
Is it acceptable to eat and drink during a video meeting?
The golden rule: if you would not do it in a regular meeting face to face, don't do it on camera. Of course, have a glass of water. I have a glass of water here because we're doing a lot of talking. That's okay. But you have probably been in a lot of meetings where people are crunching their carrots, and unless it's a lunch meeting where everybody's doing it, no, because we can hear you, right? Cameras on our sorry, microphones on our I can talk.
Laptops.
English is my only language. Anyway, we can all hear it. Our microphones pick it up.
I have my sister-in-law, I don't know, God bless her, I love her. She's from New Brunswick, so I don't think she's watching today. Anyway, so every time I talk to her, I don't know, it's like whenever she calls me or Zooms me or whatever's me, it's like it's the only break she has in the day. And so she's eating every time she calls me. Like, could you do that in event? And it's very distracting. So you all know that. The answer, no, 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 no.
Absolutely. I completely agree. What advice would you give to introverts and extroverts in how to best manage their video time?
Yeah.
I would think that
Go ahead.
I would think that the first thing is know which one you are, right? Know which one you are. And now that I've cut Shona off, she can answer the rest.
Well, one of the things we've been working with clients on is in your teams, you've got this mix of introverts and extroverts. And Jen and I feel like we can speak about this with authority because we are half and half introvert and extrovert. So we understand where you get to your saturation points. So what we've recommended with your teams is kind of mix up the video conferences. So we've got a little formula, you know, you can fool around with what it works for you and your teams, but we're recommending Monday video conference meetings, kick off the week. Everybody's live on video. Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday with your meetings. Make video optional for certain meetings so the introverts are feeling like they've got a break from being on all the time. Make it optional. You know the extroverts are going to have their camera on because they want to see what people are wearing today and everybody's face so they can get that energy. And then we recommend that Fridays are video conference free. If you have to have a meeting, it's on the phone. Just mix it up a little bit and give people options. One of my clients was telling us the other day that they felt guilted into being on camera all the time, and they were having 6 or 7 Zoom meetings a day. And she just said, you know, it's not like I'm wearing my pajamas or anything, but I just feel like I'm not looking my best and I don't want to engage visually. But she's still involved in the meeting. So just, you know, talk with your team and try to figure out what a good balance of those things are, and don't always make it mandatory. Jan's really in the dark now. Don't always make it mandatory to be on the screen.
Awesome. The next question we have is, how do you effectively handle the lag or delay that can happen during a video meeting? It can sometimes result in people over talking each other, etc. I know I have experienced this before, and then you feel awkward and you don't know what to do, and then so I would love to know the answer.
Yeah, we all do it, and I think really what it comes down to is really we're all terrible listeners, right? We really are. We're so busy thinking about what it is that we want to say next that we jump in and we step on the person who is either speaking or, heaven forbid, has paused to collect their thoughts, and you think, oh, opportunity, and you jump in and say something. I'm guilty of it too. So I think in a meeting, particularly if you're chairing the meeting or hosting the meeting, if you think of the conversation like passing a baton. So I would have a little comment, whatever I have to say, and then Shona and I have been doing it actually, even though I've messed it up a few times, is I'll say, Shona. So now she knows that I'm finished speaking. I'm actually finished speaking, and now it's her turn. So I'm sort of verbally passing the baton to her so that she knows that it's her turn to speak. Now, does it always work? No. Does it usually work? Yes. And at the other time, or at the other end of that spectrum, if you step on someone, so apologize. Remember I spoke earlier about be human on camera? Well, that's a good time to be human. You laugh, you say, oh, Shona, I'm so sorry, I keep stepping on you. You go ahead. So it's very clear. So you're not doing this, right, that we've all done. So just make it clear who's next and speak.
Yeah, so clarity in terms of passing the baton, like let's say there's 5 of you. there's Mackenzie, Jenna. So I'll make my comment. Mackenzie, you're up next. Like, just tag the next person, whether you're the chairperson of the meeting or not. And yeah, Mackenzie might not necessarily know she's going to be next, but you should all be ready. But we've found that works really well, sort of passing the baton. The other thing I wanted to add to that is something that I learned in my coaching training, which is we have to become more comfortable with silence. So when you ask a question or you've made a statement and you're looking for a response, count to 10 in your head. First of all, there may be a 2 or 3 second lag in people hearing what you actually said, depending on where everybody is. We have clients all over the world, so we'll say something and count to 5 before they actually hear it. But that also leaves people time, particularly introverts, to ruminate on what they're going to say, to think about it. So guaranteed, if you count to 10 in your head, usually if you get to 8, someone's going to speak. But if you get to 10 and no one said anything, just say, I'm going to repeat the question. And that way you're giving people time to think about stuff. You're not stepping over people. You're accounting for the 2 to 3 second lag. There will be some more silence spots in your meetings, but that's okay. Become comfortable with it, because it just, again, like everybody knows, it can become chaotic. So pass the baton, count to 10.
Awesome. Love those examples. They're super helpful. How do we deal with body language reading over video conferences?
It's very difficult. It's very challenging. You know, Jan and I were just talking about this yesterday, and we've done research on this. We have differences of opinion. Like Jan said, she's standing further away from the camera, as she said earlier. So she's back there with her body language. And so it has to be just a little bit bigger than maybe you normally would when you're standing away. But here I am closer to the screen. So I can be doing all of this. See how kind of jerky and distracting? Yeah. So I've been really working on, because I can do that, right? Talk with my hands too, slowing it down a little bit, I raise my hands a little bit to make the point, like our personal life and our work lives. And I've just slowed it down. But again, it can be really distracting when you're close up like this. So you really want to understand that if you're doing this, you're partly in the camera and it's distracting. So it really depends where you are. I could sit further back and then just, use bigger gestures, and it works out a little bit better. So it kind of depends where you are. I know Jen has something to add to that.
She always assumes that I do. Good. I totally agree. And I think that sometimes there is danger in attempting to read other people's body language, because it's not always right. Most of us are not very good at it. We make assumptions about people that are often wrong. We don't know what happened the 10 minutes before they came into the meeting. We have no idea what's going on in their world, and that might be reflected in their face. And right now, for example, looking at people's face on screen, it's really intimate. And you would never look at someone's face that closely in a board meeting, ever. But now, because I'm a great big head in your living room or in your office, you're analyzing everything that every little twitch or flinch or whatever is going on in my face, which really doesn't always reflect what's going on in my brain. That sounded really bad, but you know what I mean. So what I would also say to you, those of you who are learning to present and getting better at it, is get to know your own face. So when we say to you, try and smile when you speak, or perk up your energy, some of you will say, well, I do smile when I talk. But I would bet that if you asked your coworkers, they might say something different. So as ridiculous as it sounds, you need to spend some time looking in the mirror. And you need to test drive some of those reactions. How do I look when my boss says X, Y, or Z? What's the face? What's the response? And see what your face actually does, so that you know what you're projecting to the camera. Because as crazy as it sounds, most of us are not really intimately acquainted with our face and how it arranges itself when we're talking. Okay, so it really is a skill. And cut people some slack. Recognize that they've got a lot going on in their home office, and you might not know what that expression is on their face.
Like my dog coming in and out of my office right now. My husband is away, so there's no one to look after the dog. But I do want to just add one more thing. We've been talking about looking directly in the camera. So the challenge then becomes, and I find this a lot teaching online, is, you're always looking for feedback from your students and how they're reacting. But if I'm looking in the camera all the time, I'm not seeing it. So as we demonstrated before, you know, go back and forth between the camera, make the camera your home base, but look at people. You know, Jan's nodding right now. You know, I sort of saw that peripherally, but I was looking at the camera, so I didn't pick up all of it. So it's a balance between the camera and just coming back to it while you're checking perception. And that's my last point. Check perception, right? We just, so much stuff is going on, and this is true in person too. If you don't know what's going on, say, Jan, you looked a little confused. Is that true? Or, you know, did you just, you know, have an itch or something?
Perfect. The next question we have, what are your best tips for virtual job interviews? Somebody's asking.
Oh boy. Well,
Everything that you've heard today.
Yeah, pretty much.
There. How's that? Everything that you heard today. And then the other thing that I would say, if you're at the job interview stage and you're actually having a face-to-face with the team or whomever, they like you already. So relax and be you. Relax and find the energy in yourself and what you're projecting and how you want to be part of their team, because that's the part that's the clincher, whether you're live or whether you're virtual. That's the clincher in any interview, is does this person fit? So it's really important that you demonstrate you. It's really important that if you believe that you're excited about getting this job, or you're excited about the position, or you're excited about the opportunity, then they believe it, because it comes through in your body language, it comes through in your energy. So please remember your eye contact and just find the passion that you're feeling, and they'll feel it too.
I have some personal experience with this, very, very recent. My 27-year-old son is looking for a new job. He's working in London, England. He wants to come back to Canada. In the times of COVID, his timing is amazing. But he is that introverted, kind of quiet person, and he doesn't, you know, he can't believe his mother is a public speaking trainer. Like, no way, I'm not doing that. But I have given him these tips, and we have run drills over Zoom for his interview experience. So I'm pleased to tell you that he had a half-hour interview, preliminary interview with Google last week, and he's going to the next stage. And he called me and he's like, Mom, I smiled, I stood up, I had energy, it was great. So all the things we've talked about today apply to interviews as well.
That's awesome. And you definitely makes a difference. You feel so much more confident after knowing you nailed it, especially just, I mean, rather than in person, but online too. You can be in the comfort of your own home, or where you feel comfortable, and not added stress of going into somewhere you haven't been before, which kind of adds to it as well, probably.
Can I just say one more thing about interviews is tape your notes, the points you want to make, the key things you don't want them leaving the interview not knowing or knowing about you. So just put the sticky notes there. And just make sure you're organized before the interview. I interviewed somebody recently, and I just thought, did you not know we were having the interview? Could you have cleaned off your desk or the coffee mugs and stuff behind you? So be aware, people are looking at interviews in your background as well.
Absolutely. So we have time for about one or two more questions. Somebody is asking, it's been my experience that people in any kind of meeting have laptops and cell phones in front of them. I like to say, please put them away from my meeting. What do you suggest? It's hugely distracting. And I guess on the other side of that, you can't, with video meetings, you can't see what other people are doing or underneath the table or what have you. So it's hard.
Yeah, and I think I said earlier that it's really important that you're a good audience member as well, that you're a good meeting participant. And I think that the same as I would say in a live presentation, when you're watching someone speak, you have to recognize that they're putting themselves out there. They're putting themselves out there, whether they're on camera or they're on a stage. And so probably they deserve the respect that you can give them a few minutes of their time. Now, I understand that we have these fabulous devices that are extremely distracting, and do you need to glance at it every now and again? Well, maybe you do if you're expecting a call. But wouldn't it be great if you said to the meeting host, Mackenzie, this is a really great meeting and I'm interested in everything you have to say, but I'm expecting a call from blah, blah, blah. And so I'm just going to glance down every now and again. Please excuse me. So give people a heads up. And I don't think, Shona might disagree, but I don't think there's anything wrong at the beginning with a meeting, at the beginning of a meeting, with saying, we all need to know this. We need to make sure we're on the same page. It's really important that everybody's engaged. I promise I won't go over time. I need 15 minutes of your of your time, and we'll be done. So if you can stick with me, shut off your whatever, let's do this.
Yeah, and sticking to that time is important.
Yes.
I will add one thing, Mackenzie, you're saying you can't tell. You can't, you really can. Like, I know we're not in person. I know you're looking at your phone, but this is what's happening, right? People are doing this.
Oh,
I know you're on
and
your
Vince will be
phone,
sleeping.
right?
Yeah.
You know,
I know you're texting.
yeah.
Yeah.
So again, the etiquette is the same. If you would not do it in a meeting, hopefully you're not doing that in face-to-face meetings. Don't do it online.
Perfect. And as many of us are now working from home and we might not have an office, is there a better place to sit in at our homes when doing a video conference?
Yeah, really, really good question. Jan's walked around us, as she said, looking for light, but you're talking about space and time, I think, away from people. And we just did a webinar a couple of weeks ago about working from home. Now, we've been working from home for a long time, so we have this kind of all figured out. If you have the luxury of having a separate room for your office, that's great. We do, but a lot of people that we work with don't. So one thing we've recommended, it's not ideal, but if you, like in a 1-bedroom apartment, you got, you know, your spouse and a child, can you set up a corner of your bedroom that's got your computer on it? And then you at least have some space where you can close the door and have some quiet time when you need it. Like, it's not great that work and personal are blending, but if you've got limited space, that's one way to do it. So you know what, and another thing is just have if you are going to be, you don't have a lot of extra space, another corner like in your living room, but don't do it your dining room, because this is you know, or wherever you eat, because you're cleaning up your papers, it's all the time. So if you can carve out a space that's just for you and set those ground rules. I started working from home when my kids were really little. They're all grown up now. And I set ground rules, you know, when I didn't have a separate office space. And it only works, admittedly, with kids that are old enough to get it. So 8 was about the way I could manage it. Under 8, it was a little more challenging. But I would set, you know, a schedule for the day. These 2 hours, mom's working. There will be no interruptions. You will be doing the following things. And in this case, with a lot of homeschooling, who knows what's going to happen in the fall, you know, get them working on school stuff. But we had a defined schedule through the day. I would post it on the fridge. We created it as a family, so everybody agreed to it. And by the way, I have 5 kids, so it was really important that we had this schedule and everybody stuck to it. I mean, it's not ideal. I mean, there are no perfect answers to that, but having that separate space and a schedule really helps even the kids know what's going on.
Awesome. Well, before I close us out here, I think we don't have time for any more questions. There was just a few more, so I can definitely send them over to Jan and Shona to get them answered afterwards. But could I hand it over to you guys if you wanted to say anything else before I close this out?
Sure. Yeah. Well, we'd like to say thank you. First of all, we'd like to say thank you to Sandbox for holding these panel sessions. They're brilliant, and we really are excited about coming back. And for all of you who are still watching and still hanging in there, thank you very much. And do send, if you've got some ideas that you'd like for our next couple of sessions, send them to Mackenzie, and we'd like to hear what you're looking for specifically as we continue to be online. So, and I know Shona and I are very excited about our program that's starting in September. So be sure to check it out at Sandbox, or check out our Ovation Speaker Training.com. OvationSpeakerTraining.com is our website, and check out our programs for the fall. We're very excited about those. For those of you who want to take your skill level, I was gonna say to the next level, but no, that's not what it is. It's about getting out there and figuring yourself out as a speaker, and it can be scary. So we would love to have you, and it's a lot of fun. So Shona?
Well, I think that's it in a nutshell. So yeah, we'll leave it at that.